So more than 3.5 million Americans quit their jobs every month. Unemployment rate is extremely low, and employers are dying to find qualified candidates that they wind up losing. And so much so that now a third of U.S. workers seriously consider quitting their job in the last 3 months. Joining me on 700 WLW on the AcuteHearingCenters.com hotline, pinch hitting for the vacationing Julie Bauke, our career Sherpa, is Dr. Daren Martin. He's a performance coach. Doc, good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So the reason why a third, I think most people probably at some time when they were up to their neck in BS and corporate BS and the soul-sucking hellhole that we all work in collectively in our individual jobs, is that we thought, I'd love to just be able to quit right now. But what does this study say relative to the third of workers who said they seriously considered quitting their jobs? Why?
Because of exactly what you described. Work, for the most part, is a soul suck, and it's been going on for a long time. It's just that we live in an age where people have other options. There's a lot more ability to go out and start your own thing or do other things. So, people leave. Why do people leave relationships? Mm-hmm. They leave because they get a better offer, or because the relationship stops working for them. And it's the same thing at work. And I think the big emphasis is that it stops working for them.
In what capacity are we talking about? I mean, financially, healthcare benefits, the stress of the job, or all of the above?
Okay, so the first two are what we call demotivators, right? If you don't get paid enough, you're going to be upset. If your health insurance, but that's just table stakes. I mean, that's the baseline expectation, and I don't think people necessarily take or leave jobs based on that solely alone. Mm-hmm. I think it's because of, it's been classically said, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. I think it's much bigger than that. People don't leave jobs, they leave company cultures. We've got a massive shift that is needing to take place in the way we think about work. And most organizations, companies are really slow to make that change. And so people are looking for the bigger, better deal, and that's why they're moving on a lot more frequent basis.
Well, it's part of this thing, too, because if you go back a couple generations, and I think that both can be true here, that it's always nice when you enjoy your job and enjoy what you do, but there's something to be said for punching the clock in that it's a job. I have a family outside of work. I think the problem was when we started confusing having a workplace culture that mimics our out-of-work culture, like, bringing your dog to work, casual Friday, all the stuff that they do to try and encourage, camaraderie and keep the workplace light and happy. A lot of employers started making it feel like, and confusing the line between your personal and private life in your work life. So you want to spend more time at work. And I think that whole thing got misconstrued as well. I should be as happy when I'm not working as I am working. It's a job for a reason.
Yeah, it is, but it's also life, and people talk about work-life balance. I think that's nonsense, because when are you not alive? If you're not alive at work, which is the reality, by the way, we have a lot of zombie employees walking the hallways, then you're not bringing your A game. And the reality is, if we do look historically, Gallup has shown year over year a 29% engagement at your typical company, and that was there long before the millennials came along. And, we look back on parents, grandparents, they came home exhausted at the end of the day after working in the factory or punching the clock. And they did it because they had to. We're not in a world where that is the case. Henry Ford is quoted as saying, "Why, when I ask for a pair of hands, do I get a brain?" That's the kind of automated workforce that he was looking for, and quite frankly, he gets now, but it's a little too late. But people are people, and if we just eradicate the people side of what work looks like, then you've got what we have, a lot of miserable people who just drag themselves in on a Monday morning and waltz out on Friday. And we can definitely do better than that.
Has it always been that way? I mean, isn't that the nature of work that but whether it's a couple generations ago, doctor, that would punch a clock, come home exhausted, go to sleep, get up, do it the next day. But when they punch that clock, there was a beginning and end of the workday. Today, the work follows us all over the place. I think that's a big difference.
Oh, for sure. Work invaded home, and then that's what we have. You're still responding to emails. Most people say they expect to be working on their vacation. But look, we got to define work and think about it. Is climbing Mount Kilimanjaro work? Yes. My buddy just got back from doing that. It was one of the toughest, most exhausting things he did. You know how much he got paid to do that? Not a dime. In fact, he spent a lot of his own money to go make it happen. Why? What's the difference from that and going to a job? It purely has to do with the meaning. There are companies where people love showing up. They love performing. They love working really, really hard. I mean, there are not as many as I'd like, but examples of that out there. And I think we just got to get out of this split that we've created between work and life, make it all life, and make work a place that we can really perform and, be fulfilled and do something that's meaningful.
Well, but the workaround of that, the problem is corporate hierarchy. Isn't that really the problem here? If the man would just leave you alone to do your job, I think most people would be just fine and go, okay, what do I have to do today? What do I have to get done this week? Let me do it on off hours. I can come in on the weekend and not be here on Monday, Tuesday. The problem is the tired hierarchy, the man in the gray flannel suit kind of thing still persists today when we have a workforce that's able to work from anywhere in the world for that matter. As long as the work's getting done, I think you should be able to work anywhere and at any time. If we allowed that, how much better would our lives be?
Immensely. I wrote a book called Company of Owners, and in there I talk about command and control is dead. Put a fork in it already. The hierarchy existed in a time where communication wasn't what it is today. Mm-hmm. And I think that you've really nailed the nail on the head, is that all that structure, just think about the way we even talk about work up and down the chain, right? Levels of the company. We talk about bosses. I mean, it's even our lexicon around work is really jacked up for the current world. And if people, I say, hey, people will say, well, how do I create a company of owners? And I say, if you want people to act like owners, treat them like owners, which we definitely don't do. No, you got to punch your clock. I want to see you coming in at this time. And if we really ignited what people are already passionate about anyway. Edward Deming says nobody comes to work to do a bad job. People want to be self-fulfilled. They want to excel. And we're just not tapping into that, and that's partly because that structure doesn't create an environment to make that happen.
Well, I think the management hierarchy is part of this too, because now in corporate America, in every big company, the boss has to report to a boss who reports to another boss who reports to his boss, and everyone's job in that level is defined as how many boxes they can check. And so what ends up happening is that's why you have to have this exercise in futility, rather than just simply hiring good people and trusting them to get the work done. And if they don't, you can find out they're not, fire them, reassign them, encourage them, whatever you need to do. But it's largely because of the guys who are in the middle and the upper levels of management, in a lot of cases, aren't particularly bright and have low self-esteem themselves. And they feel that they've got to keep the guy happy above them and push stuff up and down the chain. That's the problem. The way management structures, to me, seems to be the biggest issue.
Yeah, and who wants to be managed? I don't want to be managed. When we started calling them managers, really when we've got leaders and leadership, their sole objective is to inspire the people that they are leading and then give them the vehicles and the tools and the resources they need. Unfortunately, it's very much what you described. I think we've got to move, as I say, decision-making closer to the valve. Hire the right people. This is what Netflix does. There's a handful of really great companies that does this. They say, look, we hire A players and we treat them like A players. We're not going to tell you how many vacation days you can take. We're not going to, penny pinch you or time whip you with a punch-in kind of clock. Yep. We expect you to come act like adults. And obviously, as in any relationship or any team, if somebody's not pulling their weight, the team will take care of it. We'll address it.
Yeah, which is a good thing. It's like, hey, this guy's not pulling his end of the rope. We got to make some changes or straighten this person out because they're carrying the rest of us down. It's like, you're trying to carry a couch up to your buddy's new apartment on the 6th floor. There's 3 people, and the one guy's faking and holding his end of his corner. Well, which the guy is faking holding his end of the corner up, and you got to deal with that. But unfortunately, there's too much protectionism in old state ways and doing how things we've always done them. That's this whole. I love that. Hey, you know what? You're a professional. We hired you. If you need the day off or vacation, take the vacation days. But I think that also causes people to look over their shoulder more and go, well, this guy only took 2 vacation days this year. If I take more than that, I'm going to look like I'm that guy not holding up my end of the deal. How do you work with that?
Well, that's the hidden culture, right? So I know a company that says, hey, we're not going to limit vacation, but nobody takes it because they're scared to death.
Right.
They haven't really, contrast that with Netflix I mentioned earlier. If you don't take it, they come around and say, hey, dude, you've been here, 6 months. What's going on? You need to go take a break because it's really something they believe. So it can't just be on paper. It's got to be the reality of the way people operate. So, talking about vacation, just picture this. Somebody says, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going on vacation next week. And what's the response in a typical workplace? Well, I wish I could do that.
Right.
Oh, man, lucky you, And all that does is reinforce this idea that somehow vacation is a bad thing when all the data, all the science says we're better off when we have periods of rest and break and we go do something else. I was at the Richards Group, actually. It's an advertising firm here locally. Stan Richards is known for really being focused on culture. They had a nap room. And you go, oh, yeah, well, that's fine for an advertising agency. But there's a lot of data that has come out recently that says air traffic controllers, for example, perform 20-30% better than their peers when they take a 30-minute nap in the middle of their shift. That's a really stressful job. Well, I'll tell you which one I want. Call the shots on landing my plane. Give me the one the guy that had the nap. So we've got to get out of these old notions that are really archaic. They're creating the dilemma we have now with just super low employee engagement. And if we're going to address this problem, we've got to rethink the way we think about work, because we had to do that when we went from farming to, factories. We had to do that when we went from factories to office cubicles. And now this whole new idea of work is on the horizon. We're still trying to stuff the old ways into the new ways of operating.
Right, and it's just simply not working. And I think you also have people rising their level in competency, too, in middle management and upper management who just simply take up salary and space but really don't do a hell of a lot, don't produce anything. Is that model ever going to change?
Look, it better. In fact, I just announced yesterday, I just started the Global Company Culture Association. I'm CEO and founder. And that organization is solely focused on driving an evolution at work. And I say evolution because we're not overthrowing anything. It's really about next steps. We're not the same people as we were in the 1500s or the 1200s. We're very different. And I want to say in many ways, we've really evolved to a higher level of thinking, a higher level of the way we do relationships, all that stuff. So it's ridiculous to think that work is going to stay static and we're going to evolve as a society and as people, and that somehow that's going to work. Everybody rags on the millennials, but basically they're saying, hey, I don't want to go do a drudge job. And quite frankly, they go, I won't do it. I want to do something where I feel a part of it. I can contribute. I feel appreciated, respected, et cetera, all those things that we trash them for. But the reality is, I think that's the way people have always felt. It's just they felt like in our grandparents' generation, they just had to suck it up and go deal with it.
Right. Dr. Daren Martin, performance coach. What's the website?
Well, I'll give you the new one, www.globalcompanycultureassociation.com. If you can spell that right, kudos to you. Or you can if you can't do that one, Daren at Daren Martin.com.
All right, Daren, thanks for pinch hitting for Julie this week. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great
Take care. There you go.